Hey everybody, Brandon here, also known as Cactus Juice in the Steam community, and in this video tutorial I'm going to be teaching you how to lay curves with the Easements tool. Now when most people start a route and they're starting to lay track, they'll just pick a piece of track and start laying away. And now that's fine for certain applications, but let's say that you have a high-speed route where you want the track to be banked at an angle, a banked curve. Now, if you don't know what I mean by that, I'll bank this curve really quick. It's also called superelevation, and you can clearly see the difference. It goes at an angle, and the goal of that is to reduce the g-forces on the train, so the train can go faster around the curve without additional discomfort to the passengers. So when you normally implement superelevation on track laid without the Easements tool, and you go to turn on superelevation, the curved part of the track will separate from the straight part immediately. It won't superelevate gradually. It'll just immediately, yep, here we go, max superelevation, and you got this huge kink in the track. And the way around that is to lay your track with the Easements tool. It's a lot more difficult method of laying track, but it's the proper way to do it. So, an eased curve, the reason it gets the name easements is because an eased curve gradually, it starts out shallow, as a really shallow curve, and then cuts in tighter at the center, and then as you come out of the curve, it'll get more shallow. So it eases you into the curve and it eases you out of the curve. That's how it got the name Easements. So let's start laying a basic eased track. Let's start with the basics. So every eased curve... Oh, before that, this is the Easements tool. Down here, the swirly thing at the bottom, just make sure that radio button is checked. Okay? So every eased curve starts with a straight line of track. Okay? Now, you might be wondering, what do these colors mean? Alright. So if we wanted to continue laying track here, we could either continue going straight, which is that very faint yellow line in the center. We could go left, or we could go right. And those purple lines show the tightest possible curve that I could get from this point. Now, some of you might be thinking, oh, that's not a very tight curve at all. I need a tighter curve. You can go over here into your track properties, and right now I have it at the most shallow type of curve, the mainline curve. If you wanted something a little bit tighter, you could select passenger. You can now see it's tighter. Freight is even tighter than that. I mean, look at that, that's ridiculous. And then yard. It actually doesn't look right at all. I've seen it look different than that in the past. But whatever. So let's just select passenger. That's a pretty tight curve. So we start laying our tight curve, and you can see the purple line starts out very shallow, and now it's getting tighter. If you look at the very bottom of the screen, you'll see some words, radius of curvature. The higher number means a shallow curve, so it's starting out very, very shallow, and then as I move out, that number is getting smaller. It's a tighter curve. Lower radius of curvature equals a tighter curve. Okay? And the tightest curve we can get with the passenger setting is 200 for this type of track. Alright, so let's say... Oh, let's go through the other colors. So there's a couple other things popping up as I move the mouse in and out. You'll see this very faint gray line, and then this other purple line that's off to the left of the other purple line. Okay, you see that? Now, if I left-clicked at this point, the gray line indicates where the track would go if I kept that same radius of curvature. So, at this point, I have 385.9 as my radius of curvature value. So if I left-clicked here, and then I went along the gray line, you'll see that the radius of curvature is staying the same, 385.9. So if you knew at a certain point that you needed to lay a certain section of track that had a radius of curvature of so, start the curve, get it to that point, and then just follow the gray line through the rest of the curve, and then you have a very even curve. It's not in and out and bumpy, it's very constant and smooth. Okay? So let's say we didn't do that. Let's get back to 389 or whatever we were at. That's close enough. Let's say we just wanted this to be a short little shallow curve, and then we're going to come out of it and continue with more straight track. That's where that purple line to the very left of that gray line comes into play. So if I left click here and I go out to that leftmost line, you see once I reach a certain point, the radius of curvature changes to infinity. That one period $sign means infinity, which means straight track. It doesn't have a radius because it's straight. That's where the curve would end. And then you'll see the yellow line out there extending out. So you left click once you see $sign when you want to come out of the curve, and then lay some straight track again, and then you have your eased curve, and you could super elevate that and it would go gradually instead of being that jolting thing that we saw earlier. So that's a basic eased curve. Now let's make it a little bit harder. Again, starting with straight track, we'll go this way a little bit, and then we'll come out of it, lay a little bit of straight track, and then we'll go, let's change this to main line, and we can get a little curve going off to the right here. Oops, 1 second. It likes passenger for that. Get a little curve going to the right here, and then we'll make that nice and sharp for a little ways, and then we'll come out of that curve, go straight a little bit, curve off to the left, really sharp, continue around. Yeah, see, those are all curves that you could lay super elevation on now because they were all laid with easements, and it would be nice and smooth. Alright, so that's how you lay eased curves. Straight track, curve it the way you want, come out of it with the $sign, and then lay a little bit more straight track and you have your eased curve. Now it seems really simple. It gets infinitely harder when you're doing this for a realistic route and you're trying to exactly mimic the actual radius of curvature of real life track, and then you have to get out of the curve at a very specific point so it continues straight perfectly all the way down into the next curve. And I'll show you what I mean. So let me get rid of this track right here. This is in Rye, Connecticut. Whoa, I didn't mean to put that track. This track. That's better. Okay, so let me turn on my Google Maps overlay. And we're here at Rye Station in Rye, Connecticut. And I've laid some track for this little straightaway here. Now it's not going to be perfect, but it's close enough. See, at Rye Station, let me get it a little bit more curved than that. Alright, that's better. At Rye Station you have a curve that goes this way, a little bit of straight track here at the station, and then it goes straight into another curve. So I'm starting out, because that's what easements requires, start out with straight track. So we have our straight track, and we're trying to get curve nice. You have to make it follow the track and try to line up those guidelines, those purple and gray guidelines, to get the curve the way that you want it. As you can see, you can't really see too far with the Google Maps overlay. It cuts off at a certain point and all that. So here's a little trick. if you're trying to do this on a real-world route. Find a scenery object. I like to use the buoys that came with the New York to New Haven route, and I lay them on the inside track, because that's where the guidelines go, on the inside most track. Or the left side, rather. The left side. So I'm gonna just lay them on that inside track. Just give me a moment, and we'll get out of this curve. Almost out of the curve. And then we'll have it continue straight a little bit, so we can try to get that track perfectly straight. Okay. So now we'll use these buoys, and match the guidelines up with them. And you'll see the kind of changes you'll have to make on the fly in order to get this curve the way you want it. So as you can already tell, actually, one sec, just let me move this track over to the left a little bit. This isn't meant to be perfect, just demonstration. So you'll see by looking at the guidelines that it's already not far enough to the left. You see it's to the right a little bit of the buoy. So we're going to have to reduce the radius by changing it. We'll just bump it down to passenger for this one. So now you see that it's well within, I can get that. So now I'm bringing the track in to the point where the gray line is right over some of these buoys. So I can see right now it's off to the left, now it's like dead center, now it's off to the right. Get it dead center, pretty much. Left click, lay some track so it matches up with that buoy. And then you're gonna line up your next curve. Now this next curve, you're not going to use the gray line as a guideline. This time you're going to use the inside, not the inside, but the next purple line. So move this track until that next buoy is in the center of the purple line. Left click, and now start laying that track. And from here it should start getting really good. It should start getting pretty even. There can be a little bit of tolerance for error. Like, see, that's good. That's not bad at all. So I'll do that, get this whole stretch of track going. And now this is the hard part. We're coming out of the curve now. So the hard part is ending this piece at the exact point so that when I go to lay that straight track going all the way down, that it stays perfectly straight on the real-life track all the way down to the next curve. So that looks okay for now. Let's see if it actually stays straight with the track. So far it is. And as you get further down, you'll probably see some errors. You might have to tweak it a couple of degrees and go back and make little adjustments. But you get the point. Actually, I'll try to get it perfect. And the way you tweak it is by looking at the radius of the curve that you had laid. So let's say the length of the curve you had laid. So right now, this one is 272.3. So I'd write that down on a piece of paper, and if it ended up being off a little bit down here, which it is, I think it curved. Or no, it didn't curve. I just messed up. But if it ends up being off, then you know, okay, instead of 272.3, I'll have to cut it back to 268 or something like that. And you just keep tweaking that until you get it right. So I'll try to get it right. I'll just give it a couple more tries. For now, just for the sake of the tutorial. Yeah, and you can see that that's way off. So you have to make adjustments along the way. Now, some problems you might encounter, and I think I saw this happen in the last curves I set. It's a bug with the Easements tool. Let me see if I can replicate it. Give me one sec. No, it's not happening now. Oh, there it is. You'll see occasionally if you're laying more than one track on an eased curve, you'll see that these two pieces just don't come together for some reason. The other tracks came through just fine, but one of the outside tracks just isn't connecting. And even if you try to join it together or weld it together, it won't come together. And that's something that's really pissed me off with the Easements tool throughout the development of my route. So one thing that I kind of figured out how to do to avoid this is once you're at the point where you know you're coming out of the curve, instead of immediately going to the end of that point where the radius is $1.$, gradually bring your track up there instead of immediately getting up there. And then gradually lay some straight track to get out of this. And then you can continue. Oops. The trick is to do little baby steps instead of going crazy. And you can even see it's still happening a little bit. Yeah, see, it wants to do it right there. Let me see if I can extend that track myself. Nope. It's very finicky. See, it's just lame. Yep. At that point, it doesn't want to play nice anymore. But you'll have to just experiment and troubleshoot. I ran into this problem a lot when developing my route. Just got to be patient, and you can work your way through all the problems. It's a pain in the ass, but you can get it just right. So I think that's all I can really teach you about the Easements tool. It's going to take a lot of practice on your own in order to teach yourself how to do this. The buoys, or any kind of static object laid on the leftmost track, is a really good trick for guiding your curve properly. Oh, something I can teach you, or not teach you, but I can show you what it would look like now once we super elevate this curve. So you get to the point where you're done laying your curve, and we'll highlight the entire curve and we'll super elevate it. Okay, you can see it's a very high bank now, and it goes gradually. It's not that sudden jump like we saw at the beginning of the tutorial. So now I'll open up a free roam scenario, throw a train in there. I think I'll put in a Acela Express. That sounds good. Or not, screw it. We'll just put an ACS 64 consist. Small consist. Go back to Rye. We'll put it on this track. Move the engine up to the front. Actually, screw it. We'll just do the engine. Get up to speed faster. Alright, so now we have our super elevated curve, and we'll test it to see how smooth it looks. It's gonna bust my balls anyway for going over speed. Or maybe not. Did I turn off the ATC? Yeah, I think it'll be good. Alright. Oh, that's another problem. I didn't make the track electrified. Let me do that really fast. Just highlight the track. Overhead wires. Sorry about this. There we go. Now we're accelerating. And it'll be a nice, smooth curve. Super elevated and everything. Alright, so that's how you use the easements tool to lay nice smooth curves and then super elevate them afterwards. If you have any questions about the easements tool, if you're having trouble with a particular section of your track laying, just post in the comments, contact me on Facebook or on Steam, and I'll try my best to help you. I got my own stuff to work on, but I'll try to help you. Thanks for watching this tutorial, and there will be more to come. Thank you.